This is the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, BCB, bringing you news, cultural, and educational programs. This is BCB, the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra. And here is a special announcement from the leadership of Biafra government in exile. This is BCB.
Good evening, everyone, and good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are listening from today. I welcome you all to Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, BCB. I bring you this message from Biafra government in exile. And I want to talk to you passionately, my people, as we continue to exercise our right to self-determination, as we continue to aspire to be free, to be independent, and to exit from Nigeria so that we can develop at our own pace and build a nation where all of us will be equal and free, where everyone is treated fairly and like a human being that we all are, where the basic human amenities are present and available. We are to serve your people is something to be proud of, and not to subjugate your people, and not to bring people under your foot in the name of politics, like we are suffering today under the contraption called Nigeria. But I want to be clear to all of us today, especially those of us in the homeland, and equally to all those of us who are in diaspora. Everybody, every human being has a God-given right to decide who they want to associate with, how they want to belong, how they want to be governed. We must recognize that as we seek for Biafra freedom, there will be some of us within us, among us, who think differently. We must respect that. There will be some within the ethnic nationalities that make up Biafra who seek different things, a different path, who want to become a separate nation themselves, like the Ogoni, the Ijaw, the Efik, the Bibio. They are a nation in their own rights. And so there will be some of us who want to go a different way. We must respect that. We know that between 1967 and 1970 there was one nation called Biafra. Our fathers, our brothers fought together in the trenches. They battled together. They faced the enemy together. They died together. They starved together. They suffered together. But 52 years after the war, things have changed, things have moved on. Even since the emergence of this new struggle, of this new agitation for the restoration of our nation, there are still so many of us who believe that they want to remain in Nigeria. And there are some of us in other ethnic nationalities who believe that they want their own nation. That is fair enough. Everyone has that God-given right to decide for themselves where they want to belong, who they want to associate with, how they want to be governed. It is a right given to all of us by our Creator, and no one should deny anyone that right, just like we are being denied today under Nigeria. So we want to be clear that the strategies and procedures that the Biafra government in exile is putting forward gives everybody the opportunity and the freedom to decide for themselves, to come to the table for discussions so that we can agree how we want to move forward. If any of our brothers want to go alone, we can support them. We can work together. We can decide the kind of federation that we want. Historically, we are naturally autonomous people. And we believe in the God-given resources that are available in our different areas, and that we should have control over them. And that is why the Biafra Charter is clear on that structure, on the fact that all the federating units, all the federating provinces, if you like, will be self-governing, will be autonomous, and will control the resources that is in their area and develop according to their God-given ability. And so, as members of this world, we should not be oblivious of things that are happening around us and as how they are going to impact on our future and this struggle and our quest for freedom and for our own nation. As the amber of human conflict burns ominously bright towards another world war, as we can see happening today in the Ukraine, we must understand that we have reached a critical point in human history where the world is now in a constant battle of self-interest for the sake of survival. The constant economic battle for the control of natural resources and cheap labor means that poverty has been used as a tool to deliberately keep us subjugated and marginalized. Today, we find ourselves in a deplorable state of deprivation, with limited say over our collective and individual lives. More so, the lands bequeathed to us by our ancestors, we do not have control over anymore. As we remain trapped in slavery of colonial contraptions and boundaries, we must ask the question, is it an equitable thing that these men and women of Biafra, of the southeastern part of Nigeria, heirs and beneficiaries of Biafra land and the wealth therein, have been relegated to the status of slaves and paupers, and being further threatened by jihadist activities and terrorists threatening day and night to take over permanently and stop us from worshipping our God in the way that we so choose. Our right to live life as we choose has not been respected. Neither has our right to conduct our own affair been allowed. My brothers and sisters, are we to stand by and watch as the prosperity of our posterity is accorded to strangers? Is it our fate that our generations yet unborn inherit the severity of the suffering of servitude? What will be our fate in the war of the worlds, the war of politics, the war of economic self-sufficiency, the war of religious superiority, the war of national self-interest, the war of regional sovereignty, the war of world dominance, the East versus the West. In this war for survival, we must ask ourselves, will we thrive or be blown away and trampled under the foot? I ask again, what will be our fate? This is decision time. As I speak these solemn words to you, please understand that we no longer have the luxury of time. It has become once again a matter of urgent necessity that we speak with one collective voice, as we spoke in 1967, when the world had us, even though our enemies tried to drown us in the abyss of hunger and starvation. A collective of our people in the consultative assembly spoke with one voice. As I speak to you today, I am most saddened to say that the existential threat we now face is coming not only from outside, but from the inside too. Warring factions of freedom fighters are at loggerheads, causing terror to our own people. We cannot, at the 11th hour of our great struggle, destroy what we have labored so hard to build. We cannot desecrate this sacred pursuit. And we cannot continue to blame each other. In the last 2 decades or so, since the struggle reemerged, mistakes have been made. We've scored own goals. We've shot ourselves in the foot. Selfish elements have arisen. Transactional people have taken over the struggle and chose to make money from it and to castigate one another and find faults in one another, rather than closing ranks and working together, focusing on the same one holy, sacred goal. This is the time for introspection and reflection, the time of staying quiet and thinking about what we are doing, thinking deeply. Onye ọbụla chebara onwe ya echiche, chemie ya echemie, jụọ onwe ya ajụjụ. Am I doing the right thing? Whatever I'm doing, how is it going to advance the freedom of my people? A time to humble ourselves and kill the cancer of pride. A time of self-sacrifice for the greater good. A time to set aside acts of reprisal for our collective survival. A time for the love for each other to prevail above everything else. A time to remember that when brothers fight to death, strangers inherit their father's estate. A time to recall the family ties that bind us together as a people with a common culture, a common language and value system that we today call Biafra. My fellow brethren in the struggle, and to all Biafrans, home and abroad, wherever you may be, our leader Dim Chukwuemeka Odumegwu Ojukwu boldly stated on January 9, 1970, and I quote, "In these 3 years, we became the most civilized, the most technologically advanced black people on earth." End of quote. We must therefore find the same spirit of ingenuity and creativity to achieve our common goal, not as a people scattered by the winds of the 1966 pogrom and of the 1967 to 1970 genocidal war, to the four corners of the earth, but as a people who have found a common voice within their government, the Biafra government in exile and the Biafra provisional government, to come up with strategic plans for sustainable agriculture that will feed the whole nation, economic policies that will create wealth among all our people, dynamic education that will see our brightest minds create solutions to solve our immediate problems, a healthcare system backed by independent scientific research available to all, research and production of emerging technologies to make use of our vast resources for the benefit of the people, infrastructural development that will truly put us in the forefront of modern development. The work must begin now, fellow Biafrans, for the harvest is plenty. We must put an end, therefore, to infighting, to castigating one another, regardless of which group you belong to, regardless of what plans you have. Do not put your fellow Biafran down. Fight for those who are being detained. Let us bring them out. Let us make the sacrifices that this noble fight demands. But with reason and with wisdom, without hurting our own people, without hurting our own commerce and our industries, without hurting our petty traders, families who toil day and night to put food on the table, to send our children to school. Today, I bring you good news once more. A message of hope. Our nation Biafra was in existence before the arrival of the first Portuguese ship that sailed into the Bight of Biafra, which has now been renamed Bight of Bonny. All in the name of divide and rule, all in the name to obliterate our name from the face of the map. But the more they try, the clearer our name becomes on the map. We had great kingdoms like the Ijaw kingdom, the Ogoni, the Igbo, the Bini, the Anan, the Goja, Opobo, Igbo-Akere, and many other kingdoms that thrives and we are successful. We had the most advanced democratic processes and economic systems based on free market, autonomy, and freedom. Our ancestors resisted the British for over 30 years. They fought them, they were brave, enlightened, and worked together intelligently and cohesively. They led the way in the fight for independence and sent the colonialists back to Britain. When the war broke, they fought gallantly and held their own against the might of the British Empire and other powers. The enemy employed the weapon of blockade, and hunger and starvation swept in and killed over 1 million of our children, the worst in living memory. They produced their own food, refined their own crude oil, manufactured their own weapons, vehicles. They reconfigured airplanes into fighter jets and many more. When the war ended, our leader, together with key members of his cabinet, left Biafra land and went into exile, thereby protecting the government of the people of Biafra. Today, we are the remnants of Biafrans who survived the genocidal war and the remnants of the government of Biafra still in exile 52 years after the war. Any nation that rises against itself cannot stand. It's a clear quote from the scriptures. We must put an end to every type of internal fighting if we must survive. Violence against our own people, regardless of the reason. Any activity that will further impoverish and punish our people, our own people, must be avoided at all costs. The weekly Monday sit at home must stop now. And anyone proposing a 3 days sit at home in May does not have the interest of our people at heart. The Monday sit at home will be replaced by a sit at home every last Monday of the month, observed by every Biafran all over Nigeria, including Lagos, Abuja, Kano, Kaduna, Enugu, Onitsha, Aba, Iguacha, Calabar, and all the towns and cities in Nigeria where Igbos and other Biafrans live. We dominate the markets, the businesses, so we must close ranks and come together and fight for this one noble cause. So every last Monday of the month, we protest. We sit at home. We protest the continued detention of Nnamdi Kanu and all other Biafrans in police and DSS custody. And we demand for their release. Yes, we must do everything we can to free all our brothers and sisters languishing in Nigerian detention facilities, especially Kanu. Yes, we must continue to fight against the injustices we face on a daily basis. Yes, we have the right to seek, as indigenous peoples, self-determination to exit from Nigeria and be a free, independent people. In doing so, we must come together into a formidable, cohesive unit. Bring our ideas together. Challenge each other to be better and to bring the best out of each other. If we do, there will be no mountain too high, no valley too deep, and no challenge too hard for us to overcome. We are Biafrans. We have it within ourselves to achieve our goals if we work together. So let's put aside all animosity, every ego and every pain, every vain pride and self-centeredness, and give our all, selflessly, to the liberation of the motherland. Let me finish with this quote from the Holy Scriptures. As today is Sunday, so that each and every one of us will benefit, whether we've been to church or not. And let us consider one another to provoke unto love and good works, not forsaking the assembling of ourselves together, as the manner of some is, but exhorting one another, and so much more as you see the day approaching. Is what you are doing today going to help us get closer to the day of freedom, to a new beginning, to restoration, to renewal, to transformation, to economic emancipation, to good governance, to social advancement? Or is what you're doing today, the decision you make, the action you take, going to delay that day? Let us think long and hard, and let us be wise. Thank you, and God bless you, and may God bless our nation, Biafra.
This is the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, BCB.
This is BCB News Summary. The Punch reports that more commissioners hoping to run for offices have resigned ahead of the elections. More commissioners hoping to run for offices resign ahead of the primary elections. According to the Punch, at least 13 commissioners have resigned their appointments in Sokoto State ahead of the primary elections in accordance with the Electoral Act, bringing the total number of commissioners that have resigned to over 60, across the 36 states. The Punch also reports that Sokoto is not the only state where commissioners have resigned. In Kano State, no fewer than 10 commissioners have resigned, while in Delta State, at least 9 have stepped down. The case is the same in Kwara State, with about 7 commissioner resignations, Bayelsa State with at least 5. In related news, Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu recently asked members of his cabinet seeking to run for office to resign. But the Minister of State for Education, Chukwuemeka Nwajiuba, has insisted that he would not resign until 30 days before the general election as required by the Constitution. In other news, an illegal oil refinery explosion has killed over 100 people in Imo State. Reuters news agency reports that an explosion at an illegal oil refinery complex in southeast Nigeria killed nearly 100 people. According to Reuters, quote, charred bodies were left scattered among burnt palms, cars, and vans on Sunday after a weekend explosion which killed more than 100 people at an illegal oil refining depot on the border of Nigeria's Rivers and Imo states, unquote. The news agency also states that the Nigerian Red Cross Society was on the scene on Sunday to assess the blast, which destroyed a section of the Abeze forest at the border of Oheji Ebema local government area of Imo State and Rivers State. Reuters adds that Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari said in a statement that he would intensify the clampdown on illegal refineries after what he described as quote and unquote catastrophe and quote and unquote national disaster. BCB notes that there is a high level of unemployment and poverty in the oil-producing Niger Delta, thus making illegal refining or oil bunkering attractive, a reality that Reuters also acknowledges. Ahead of the 2023 general election, the Pan-Yoruba socio-political organization, Afenifere, has called on Nigerians to embrace governance that will include representatives from all regions across the country. The socio-political organization said it called for a government of national unity because Nigeria needs another approach to governance to resolve its challenges. In a communique by Afenifere's National Publicity Secretary, Jare Ajayi, the group also identified the failure of the President, Major General Muhammadu Buhari, to resolve the country's challenges as another reason for its call for a government of national unity. This ends our brief news update. Join us again for more news about Biafra and other topics of importance to our survival. This is BCB, the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra. I am Rose Ama. We close our program with an examination of the case of oil bunkering and its effects on our communities. You heard us announce the death of over 100 people as a result of an explosion in Imo State stemming from oil bunkering. In this short opinion piece, we are going to take a look at its implications for us. Why do people do it? BCB asserts that oil bunkering is a symptom of the economic crisis plaguing us in Biafra, the Niger Delta regions, or the Southeast. We assert that this level of abjection is an outcome of the Nigerian federal government's marginalization and exploitation of communities in the Niger Delta, including all those regions that were part of the original state of Biafra. As many of us know, oil bunkering is the act of illegally tapping or hacking into oil pipelines, then refining or selling the oil on a parallel or illegal market. Those engaging in oil bunkering face grave danger as the pipelines may explode, leading to deaths of people and destruction of the environment, as we have observed in the recent incident in Imo State. In addition, bunkering is destructive to the environment. As Reuters news agency notes in the recent incident in Imo State, the explosion destroyed, quote, a section of the Abeze forest in the border of the Onhaji Egbema local government area of Imo State and Rivers State, unquote. In a 2013 article titled "Oil Bunkering Threatens Nigeria's Economy, Environment," John Gambriel of the Associated Press states that, quote, some 200,000 barrels a day, representing about 10% of the country's production, are siphoned off pipelines crisscrossing the region, while drums end up leaking in villages and are used to make crude kerosene and gasoline. The major thieves appear to belong to international criminal gangs that sell it into world markets, analysts and experts say. And the same Nigerian politicians and military leaders now targeting the small-scale local refineries that dot the Delta likely are the ones benefiting from those huge thefts, unquote. How does one justify such a situation where most of the oil wealth is in the hands of non-indigens, specifically the Hausa Fulani-dominated federal government of Nigeria and a few greedy politicians and military leaders? How can the Niger Delta regions have so much wealth, yet have no progress, and the residents continue to live under squalid conditions? Oil was discovered in the Niger Delta in 1956, and about 80% of all government revenue in Nigeria comes from oil. As such, we might ask, where is our share of this wealth? More than half a century after the discovery of oil, our people are still begging for their share of the national wealth. We get just simply scraps. We have little progress in the Niger Delta, Biafra, or Southeast. Our regions lack infrastructural development. Our schools are dead. Our roads are full of potholes, trenches, and gullies. Our youth are disillusioned and jobless. We do not have consistent electricity or technological advancement. We cannot even brag of usable drinking water. We cannot brag of sustainable agriculture or workable land. Our lands are destroyed by oil pollution. We cannot claim any security on our own ancestral home. We have been relegated to the status of otherness, slaves, pariahs in our own lands. Oil is under our soil, under our lands, extracted from our lands, yet we cannot claim it as our inheritance. We have become beggars in our own lands with absolutely no agency over what happens to our resources. Welcome to our hell, you might say. Still, our elected representatives from the Southeast, Biafra land, or the Niger Delta, you choose, and some of our own community leaders claim that they speak for us and continue to advocate the preservation of a nation that is nothing but an albatross around our necks. a nation that does not recognize us as having any rights. The Associated Press article noted with irony the situation, citing a situation in Diebu, a village in Bayelsa State, the home of former Nigerian President Goodluck Jonathan. The article noted that in Diebu, quote, children ran and played around leaking drums of stolen crude oil. The crude likely came from lines run by Shell and Italian oil company, Eni SPA. Though residents there demanded money from visiting journalists to see the sites of the thefts. Many here view the thefts as their opportunity to have a taste of a commodity that built Nigeria's sterile central capital of Abuja, a city of gleaming towers and massive highways. In Diebu, the locals pointed out a large clinic of empty rooms without medicine and a local doctor's quarters that appeared to have squatters inside. The dilapidated schools had large holes where windows were supposed to be, unquote. The article continued, quote, we are bleeding, unquote, said one man working at a nearby illegal oil refinery who gave his first name as Prince. The article continued, quote, we need this one to balance out our life, unquote, a man continued. Indeed, it seems that a situation where those who own the land have been denied access to it or its resources, oil bunkering becomes a form of resistance, even if it means the death of the communities. Some people have pointed to the Petroleum Act as a mechanism for achieving some balance in the distribution of oil wealth or oil revenue. But that same act has only further exposed what we all know, that the oil wealth has benefited only the North. The Petroleum Act is the first legislation that regulates oil and gas in Nigeria. Section 1 of the Act states that, quote, the entire ownership and all petroleum in, under, or upon any land in Nigeria is vested in the state, which is the federal government of Nigeria, unquote. So you tell me, if the federal government claims all ownership of all petroleum under or upon any land in Nigeria, then what do you have in your own state? My people, have you just realized that our lands, our resources, our wealth have been sold from under us? In fact, the bill has been seen as controversial because it was largely designed to support Northern lawmakers, to support the North. And it was supported by Northern lawmakers and leading politicians, while many lawmakers from the South and the oil-rich Niger Delta states opposed it, arguing that the bill advanced Northern interests to the detriment of the South. Where is justice in this then, I ask? Where is equity? Do we have the right to agitate against our oppression? Do we have the right to call for self-determination? Friends, brothers, sisters, fellow Biafrans, fellow Southeasterners, fellow brethren from the Niger Delta, are you listening? It is time to examine our purpose. You have now arrived at your Rubicon. What will you do? Where do you stand? This is Rosama. Let's get wiser. We hope you'll join us in the future for more news, conversations, and programs related to the struggle for our freedom. Visit us on Facebook and YouTube, subscribe to our program, and like us. This is BCB, and I am Rose Ama. This is the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra. Thank you for listening to us today. Join us next time for news, cultural, and educational programs. This is the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, BCB.